All right, today we're going to look at something that you're all asked to do pretty much from the time you're in 8th grade until you finish high school in your math class, which is to isolate the variable or solve for the variable. So we're going to look at a problem that has a variable on both sides. The first one is -9 plus 7n equals 4n plus 6. What I like about working with these types of problems is that you always have options. All right, so for example, the first thing I could do in order to solve or isolate the variable is I could move this term, and I could do that using inverse operations, and I could add 9. And if I add 9 on this side of the equation, I need to add 9 on this side of the equation. And you'll notice that I lined up that 9 with its like term, which was simply the number 6. All right. I could also if I wanted to, I could start with this term, and what I could do is subtract 7n from both sides. And you'll note that if I do that, like I did in the example before, I'm lining up the like terms on the right side of the equation. So again, you have options when you do this, all right? So I'm going to leave it up to you, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to go ahead and do it a couple different ways. So we'll start by, you know what? We could even start with the stuff that's on the right side of the equation if we wanted to. We could subtract 4n and then do the same thing on this side of the equation. All right. Or we could work with this. We could subtract 6. Subtract 6 on this side. There's so many options of things that we can do. We'll go ahead and stick with this last option that we chose, which is to begin by subtracting 6 on both sides of the equation. I like to just put a line underneath when I do that so that it looks more like a vertically aligned math problem. And we know that a positive 6 minus 6 cancels out. And then I'm just going to bring everything down. I'm going to bring this 4n down. I'm going to bring the equal sign down. I'm going to bring the 7n down. And then I'm going to combine these like terms, and they're both negative. So a -9 minus a 6 is going to give us a -15. And then this is a positive 7n, so we're going to put a plus right there. And now I can work from this part. This part is finished. And now we have -15 plus 7n equals 4n. Now I've already got my -15 on the left side of the equation, so I'm going to work on getting my n term over here. So I'm going to need to do that using inverse operations. So right now I've got a positive 7n, so I'm going to subtract 7n. Again, if I subtract 7n on this side, I need to subtract 7n on this side so that the equation remains balanced. And then I'm just going to bring down what's left. So positive 7 minus 7 cancels out. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. I'm going to bring down my -15. And then I'm going to combine these terms, and I've got a 4n minus a 7n. So that is going to give me a -3n. And then I'm going to use inverse operations to isolate the n. Right now, we've got a -3 times n. All right, so the inverse of multiplication is division, so I can divide by that coefficient of -3. And if I divide by -3 on the right side of the equation, I need to divide by -3 on the left side of the equation. And -3 divided by -3 gives me a positive 1n. And then I've got a negative 15 divided by a negative 3. A negative divided by a negative gives a positive, so that's going to end up a positive 5. Now, I don't need to write the 1 as a coefficient in front of n because it's understood if I just have an n that it is 1n. So n equals 5. All right? I'm going to do the same problem over here, and I'm just going to start it a different way, and we're going to see if we end up with the same answer. So we've got negative 9 plus 7n equals 4n plus 6. So why don't we start by getting rid of this term, or moving it to the other side of the equation, all right? So we're going to start by subtracting 7n. If we subtract 7n on this side of the equation, we need to subtract 7n on this side of the equation. 7n minus 7n equals nothing. I'm going to bring down everything else. So I've got a negative 9 over here. Bring down my equal sign. I'm going to combine these like terms, and a 4n minus 7n equals a negative 3n. And then I'm going to bring down my positive plus 6. Since I've already started to bring the variable on this side of the equation, I'm going to leave that on this side of the equation, so I'm going to work on getting the 6 over to this side of the equation. Right now it's a positive 6, so since we're going to use inverse operations to get rid of that, I'm going to have a minus 6 on this side. If I subtract 6 on the right side of the equation, I need to subtract 6 on the left side of the equation so that it remains balanced. 6 minus 6 equals nothing, so then I'm just going to start by bringing everything else down. Bring my minus 3n down. I'm going to bring my equal sign down. And then I'm going to combine the like terms, and I've got a negative 9 minus 6 equals a negative 15. All right, now I need to isolate the n by using inverse operations. Right now I've got a negative 3 times n. So the inverse of times, or the inverse of multiplication, is division. So I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. Anything divided by itself is 1. So negative 3 divided by the negative 3, that cancels out. And I bring down that n. And then I divide the negative 15 divided by negative 3. The negative divided by negative is a positive, and I end up with 5. These are the same thing. We did it a completely different way. Over here, we started by subtracting the 6. Over here, we started by subtracting the 7n. With both ways, we ended up with the same answer, which was n equals 5. I love working with variables because it shows you how many different options you have available when you do math. Please use this example to try a few on your own.